My in-laws looked me in the eyes at Christmas dinner and said I was just a womb for their precious bloodline, so I made sure they'd never lay eyes on that baby they were so desperate for. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. When I married Tyler Caldwell at 29, I knew I was marrying into wealth. What I didn't realize was that I was also marrying into a family that saw me not as a person, but as a vessel. At first, the Caldwells were polite in that hollow, polished way rich people can be. Judith, my mother-in-law, complimented my manners. Howard, the patriarch, asked about my job as a nurse with a condescending chuckle, like he was surprised I worked at all. But I smiled. I tried. 3 years in, things shifted. Every family gathering became a subtle interrogation about when we'd start a family. Tyler, always quiet, would shrug it off or laugh. I assumed he was just deflecting pressure. Then came Christmas. The dining room table was dressed like a magazine spread. Crystal glasses, golden chargers, a massive roast. And somewhere between Judith passing the potatoes and Howard toasting to next year's blessings, it happened. Judith turned to me, her lips tight and voice sugar-sweet. I just hope the Caldwell bloodline continues. After all, that's why we picked you. Strong hips, good genes, just the womb our family needs. Everyone laughed, everyone but me. I stared at Tyler, stunned. He looked at his plate and said nothing. Nothing. I felt like the walls closed in, like I'd been gutted and served up with the cranberry sauce. That night, I locked myself in the guest bedroom, silently sobbing while Tyler slept in the master suite. I replayed her words again and again. Just the womb. Not a wife, not a daughter-in-law, not a human being. A womb. That moment broke something in me, but it also lit a fire, a quiet rage, the kind that sharpens you, makes you aware. I started documenting everything, every passive-aggressive jab, every silent betrayal, every time Tyler told me to let it go or not make a scene. I wasn't going to run or scream or beg. I was going to remember, plan, prepare. They thought I was just a womb. Fine. Let them believe that. Let them never see what I was actually becoming. And most importantly, let them never meet the child they thought they owned before she was even born. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my power. They wanted a baby to carry their name. What they got was a mother who would burn every bridge to protect her child from becoming property. And that was just the beginning. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat across from Tyler in the dim guest room and asked, "Did you hear what your mum said to me?" He didn't even look up from his phone. "Yeah, just ignore it, Hannah. That's how she is." I stared at him, waiting for more. An apology, a defense, something. "She said I was just a womb," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice calm. "In front of everyone. And you said nothing." Tyler sighed like I was the one causing trouble. "Look, my family's complicated. You know how they are. We can't afford to upset them right now. Not with the estate stuff happening. Just play along, all right? It'll all blow over. Play along." Those words hit harder than Judith's insult. "Is that why you married me?" I asked. "Because I was good enough to play along?" He finally looked at me then. His face didn't show guilt or sadness, just frustration. "You're overthinking it. We have a good life. Let's not mess it up over one comment." That's when I knew. I wasn't really his partner. I was his piece in the game. He didn't marry me for love. He married me because I fit the image. I made him look good. I had a stable job, came from a decent background, and now they expected me to pop out a perfect little Caldwell heir. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just nodded and turned off the light. But inside me, something cracked. It wasn't just pain. It was the beginning of a plan. If they wanted me to play along, I would. I'd smile at dinners. I'd nod at Judith's nasty comments. I'd act like the obedient daughter-in-law, but only on the outside. Inside, I started making a quiet promise to myself. If I ever had a child, it would not be for them. It would not be a gift to a family that saw me as less than human. And Tyler, he would never get to hide behind silence again. They thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. But I wasn't quiet because I was scared. I was quiet because I was watching and planning. When I found out I was pregnant, I sat in silence for 10 full minutes. No tears, no joy, just silence. I stared at the little pink lines and thought, this changes everything. Not in the way most people mean. Not because I was excited to start a family, but because I knew exactly what this baby meant to the Caldwells. Sure enough, the moment we told them, Judith acted like she had just won the lottery. She hugged me tightly. too tightly, and called everyone she knew. Howard opened a bottle of champagne and toasted the future of the Caldwell name. Tyler looked proud, like he'd just completed a job well done. Suddenly, I was no longer just a wife. I was the sacred vessel carrying their legacy. Judith started showing up at our house uninvited, bringing books about proper nutrition for upper-class babies. She'd casually mention which school Ellie, yes, she already decided it would be a girl named Eleanor, should attend. Howard chimed in with talk about legacy trusts and the child's role in the family business. They were building a life for my baby before she was even the size of a lemon. It made my skin crawl. Tyler, of course, told me to just let them have their moment. But this wasn't their moment. This was my body, my baby, my life. So I smiled and nodded and played the part. But inside, I was taking back control. I found a therapist, not just for support, but to build a record, documented proof of the pressure and manipulation I was facing. Then I found a lawyer, quietly, carefully. We met in a small office across town. She was a single mum who understood what it meant to fight for your child's peace. She helped me understand my rights, helped me build a plan. I started keeping a journal, writing down every controlling comment, every overstep, every time Tyler told me to keep the peace. I recorded dates, times, and exact words. I saved texts and emails. I backed everything up in 3 different places. The Caldwells thought they were taking charge, but I was the one planning the future. They could name my baby. They could decorate a nursery in their mansion. They could dream up her first day of school, but none of it would matter. Because while they were busy building a fantasy, I was building a way out. They treated me like a container for their dream. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't just the womb. I was the mother, and I was done being silent. Judith called it a family birth plan, as if she was the one giving birth. She sat at our dining table with a color-coded binder and a printed itinerary, handing out roles like it was a corporate event. "I'll be in the delivery room, of course," she said, smiling tightly. "Howard can wait outside with the cigars. And Tyler, you'll be filming the moment for the Caldwell family archives." I blinked. "Wait, you'll be in the room?" "Of course. It's important that Ellie's first moment in this world is surrounded by tradition and strength. This is a Caldwell birth. We do things properly." Tyler didn't even hesitate. "That makes sense," he said. "It's her first grandchild." I couldn't breathe. They were planning my child's birth like it was a business launch. No one asked what I wanted. No one cared that this was my body, my experience. I smiled politely, then went to the bathroom and cried in silence. That night, I told Tyler, "I don't want your mother in the room. I don't even want her in the hospital." He looked confused. "Why not?" "She means well. She's trying to take over everything. She's just excited, hon. Don't make this bigger than it is." That was the final straw. I wasn't having this baby for the Caldwells. I wasn't delivering her into a legacy built on control. So I made my own plan. Quietly, I transferred my medical records to a smaller hospital in another state. I found a birth center that listened to me. I booked a room at a nearby inn for the weeks leading up to my due date. I paid for everything in cash. No paper trail. When the time came, I told Tyler I was visiting a friend. Then I left. I gave birth to my daughter, my Ellie, in a peaceful, quiet room with a kind nurse holding my hand. Not Judith, not Tyler. 3 days later, I sent Tyler a message with a single sentence. "She is safe, she is loved, and she is mine." By the time they realized what happened, it was already over. The Caldwells planned a birth for their heir, but I gave birth to my daughter on my terms, and they would never get to rewrite that moment. 3 days after giving birth to Ellie, I sat on the edge of a motel bed, watching the sunrise paint soft gold across her tiny face. She was perfect, warm, breathing peace into the world. In that quiet moment, I knew what I had to do. I picked up my phone and typed the message I'd rehearsed in my head for months. No emotion, no room for argument, just the truth. She is not yours. She is not theirs. Goodbye. I hit send. Then I turned off the phone and dropped it into the motel's trash can. That message shattered the bridge between me and the Caldwells forever, and I didn't flinch. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. Mine. Ellie's. I already had the paperwork ready, drawn up weeks ago with my lawyer. Full custody. No visitation. No room for Tyler or his family to claim a single piece of my child. The documents were delivered that morning, along with a legal notice. Contact through attorneys only. Tyler called me over and over. Voicemails I never heard. His confusion, his anger, his fake shock. None of it mattered anymore. He'd made his choice the moment he chose silence at that dinner table. He chose them over and over, while I sat quietly documenting every slight, every insult, every manipulation. And now, I was done. I took Ellie and moved 3 states away. No forwarding address, no digital trail. My new number was unlisted. I changed her last name, enrolled us in a support program for single mothers, got a modest apartment, a part-time job, and surrounded myself with women who understood what it meant to protect your peace at any cost. Some nights, when Ellie cried and the exhaustion sank deep into my bones, I'd wonder, did I do the right thing? Then I'd remember Judith's voice calling me just a womb. I'd remember Tyler shrugging off my pain. I'd remember how they looked at me like a shell instead of a mother. Yes, I did the right thing. This child wasn't born for their legacy. She was born from my strength, my love, my fire, and I will guard her from their poison for as long as I live. They thought I was weak. They thought they could own me with bloodlines and money. But in the end, I left them with nothing. No heir, no photos, not even a name, only silence. They didn't take silence well. Within a week of my message, the Caldwells launched what I could only describe as a full-scale manhunt. I wasn't surprised. They were used to getting what they wanted, with money, pressure, or power. And now, their precious bloodline had disappeared, tucked safely away in the arms of a woman they never truly saw as human. First came the letters. Dozens, typed and formal, from Tyler's attorney, demanding visitation, demanding rights, claiming family interest. I forwarded them all to my lawyer. Then came the private investigators. I spotted one parked near the community daycare. Another, coincidentally, showed up at the local library where I took Ellie for toddler reading hour. But I'd planned for this. I'd changed my name, my daughter's name, even my job history on public records. We were invisible where it counted. My lawyer, Susan, was a sharp woman who'd seen cases like this before. She started digging and found something that made my blood run cold, and also oddly vindicated. Turns out, I wasn't the first daughter-in-law the Caldwells tried to control. There had been another woman, Tyler's older brother's ex-wife, who had mysteriously vanished from family gatherings years ago. Rumor had it she couldn't handle the pressure, but Susan found court records, emergency custody filing, medical documentation of stress-related health issues, and even a restraining order request that had quietly been dropped. It was a pattern. The Caldwells didn't want daughters-in-law. They wanted vessels, quiet, obedient carriers of their bloodline who knew their place. And now they'd lost control of one, me. Susan helped me build a legal wall so thick that even Tyler's expensive lawyers couldn't find a crack. I filed for protective measures and flagged any attempt to access my daughter's medical or school records. Every move I made was deliberate, careful, quiet. I didn't run because I was scared. I ran because I knew they would never stop until I gave them what they wanted, and I never would. They called it a hunt, but to me, it was just noise behind a locked door. And on the other side of that door, Ellie laughed, played, and slept peacefully, far away from the people who saw her as a trophy, not a child. Tyler thought I forgot. It was 2 years into our marriage when I found out about her, a co-worker from one of his endless business retreats. I discovered a message thread he'd carelessly left open on his laptop, nothing vague or harmless, just him, telling her how trapped he felt with me and how she made him feel alive again. When I confronted him, he panicked, apologized, claimed it meant nothing, blamed the stress from his parents, blamed me. Then came the begging, the promises, the tears, the hollow words, and I said I forgave him, but deep down, I never did. That was the night I stopped being his wife and started becoming my own plan. I realized then that I was just another pawn in the Caldwell family game. They never saw me as a partner, just a tool. Tyler had married me because I was safe, presentable, agreeable. I wasn't chosen out of love. I was chosen out of convenience. So I began preparing. I didn't scream. I didn't throw his things or storm out. I stayed calm, quiet, observant. I played the loving wife while watching every move he made. I started saving, little bits of money tucked into hidden accounts. I took evening classes under the excuse of personal growth. I slowly rebuilt a network of old friends and discreet professionals, attorneys, therapists, women's groups. Every time his mother criticized me, every time Tyler ignored it, I filed it away. Every insult, every controlling remark, every reminder that I was only valuable because of my womb. And that's when I made the decision. I would give them what they wanted, but on my terms. Getting pregnant wasn't an accident. It was the final piece of a plan I'd been building for years. Not to trap him, but to free myself, to create something of my own. separate from them, something no Caldwell could touch. While Tyler celebrated the pregnancy as a legacy, I quietly met with a lawyer. I documented everything: his infidelity, the family's verbal abuse, the emotional neglect. I built a wall of proof and protection before the baby was even born. He didn't see it coming. He never saw me at all, because Tyler always assumed I was weak, that I needed him, that I was lucky to be chosen. But the truth was, I let him believe that. I let them all believe it, until I didn't, until I walked away with everything they thought they owned, and left them with nothing but their pride and a family name that meant absolutely nothing to me. The letter came wrapped in cream-coloured stationery, thick and expensive like everything the Caldwells touched. It wasn't addressed with warmth or even concern. It was a threat wrapped in polite language. They said if I didn't return with Ellie, they would cut Tyler out of the will. No inheritance, no trust funds, no access to the Caldwell estate, as if that would make me flinch. They thought I left because I was emotional, that I'd eventually crawl back once I realized what I was giving up. But they didn't understand. I wasn't giving up luxury. I was escaping a cage. I handed the letter to my lawyer. She chuckled, then drafted a response that echoed exactly what I wanted. Your money's not welcome here. The silence after that was loud, but I knew they weren't done. Judith and Howard began digging. They hired private investigators. They tried to track me through old bank accounts, mutual contacts, even social media. But I had erased every trace of myself. I had changed states, names, addresses, even the way I looked. My phone number was gone. My digital footprint deleted. I worked 2 jobs, one as a part-time barista and another as a night shift receptionist. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every dollar went into a small savings account under a new legal name, secured and untouchable. My daughter, Ellie, was registered under a private birth certificate. No social media, no school photos, no public records they could trace. I lived quietly, but not in fear. Every day with Ellie was a reminder of why I did this. She giggled when I made pancakes. She reached for me when she had bad dreams. She didn't know the Caldwells, and she never would. I refused to raise her in a house where women were treated like breeding stock, and wealth meant more than love. I didn't want her to learn how to be silent at the table, or how to smile through shame. I wanted her to grow up knowing that dignity mattered more than diamonds, and that sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is walk away from everything, just to protect the only thing that truly matters. And I did. The letter arrived on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, tucked between grocery ads and a medical bill. It was handwritten, elegant, and shaky. Judith Caldwell's signature, still proud even in her begging. She claimed she was dying. I don't have long, Hannah, it read. Please, just one visit, just to see her, just once. I want to hold my granddaughter before I leave this world. For a moment, I sat still. I read the words over and over. Part of me, a small, fragile part, felt the pull of sympathy. The woman was cruel, yes, but death doesn't discriminate, does it? Maybe people change when they know time is short. But then I remembered. I remembered the Christmas dinner, where she stared into my eyes and called me just a womb. I remembered the way she barked orders about how my daughter should be raised, as if I were just the delivery service for her legacy. I remembered the way she smirked when Tyler told me to play along, the way she invaded my birth plan, the way they all expected me to hand over my child like she was family property. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could give them. That letter was not love. It was control, cloaked in guilt. I picked up the pen, but I didn't write back. Instead, I bought a plain leather-bound photo album. I left every page blank, not a single picture, not a single memory, just empty white paper and silence. Inside the front cover, I slipped in a single handwritten note. You'll never know her. That was it. No anger, no explanations, just the truth. I sealed the package and sent it to the Caldwell estate. Signature required. 3 days later, my lawyer received a voicemail from Tyler. He was furious, ranting about heartlessness and closure. He demanded an apology, but they were too late. I had given them so many chances, so many warnings, and they'd never once looked at me as more than a means to an end. I told my lawyer not to respond. That night, Ellie and I sat together on our old couch, reading her favorite book. She laughed when I made the funny voices. She curled up in my arms without knowing the storm I had just shut out of her life forever. There's peace in choosing your child over your past. They may have money, they may have regrets, but they will never have her, and they will never have me again. The sun was golden and low, casting long shadows across the park as laughter echoed through the trees. Ellie, now 5 years old, ran ahead of me with her arms outstretched like an airplane. Her curls bounced with every step, and her joy was unfiltered, full, and real. I watched her from the bench, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. These moments, the quiet ones, were the most precious to me. No one looking over my shoulder, no cold stares, no veiled insults, just us. Over the years, there had been questions. Not many, not yet, but I knew more would come. For now, Ellie only asked simple things. Why don't I have a daddy like other kids? I would smile gently and say, because you have me, and I'm enough, just like you are. I never told her about the Caldwells, not about Tyler, not about the cruel words spoken at that dinner table, or the way they tried to own her before she was even born. Those people had no place in her world, and they never would. She was born out of love, not theirs, not obligation, but mine. A love I had to grow within myself during the quiet, painful moments when I felt alone and unsure. A love that taught me strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet decision to walk away and never look back. I worked hard, sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes more. We didn't have luxury, but we had laughter. We had silly dance parties in the kitchen. We had bedtime stories with funny voices. We had freedom, and that meant everything. Ellie ran back to me, cheeks flushed, breathless from playing. "Mommy, watch this," she shouted, running off to show me how high she could swing. I nodded, heart full. She would never know the weight I once carried, the legacy I had chosen to burn before it could touch her. In that moment, sitting there in the golden light, I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel loss. I only felt peace. Because I was never just a womb. I was her mother, and I had given her a life free of people who never deserved her light. Do you think Hannah did the right thing by keeping Ellie away from her father's family? Or should she have given them a second chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what you think. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment.